Welcome back to CBS This Morning. Coming up in this half hour, a lawsuit being announced today claims that some of the nation's most popular wines may be unsafe. CBS This Morning investigates the questions about dangerous arsenic levels and why at least one big-name retailer wants some answers.
Plus, Starbucks.
The wine business is one of the industries affected by the drought. A proposed class action lawsuit on wine is being filed today in California. It claims some of the country's top-selling wines have high levels of arsenic, up to 4 and 5 times the maximum amount the EPA allows for drinking water. This comes after recent warnings about the amount of arsenic in apple juice and rice. Carter Evans is looking into the new allegations about wine. He's in Los Angeles. Carter, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie. There are almost no federal labeling requirements to tell you what's really in the wine you drink. So a Denver laboratory started running tests to find out. Their results are what ultimately led to this legal action.
How were those tests that you're running?
After 15 years working in the wine distribution business, Kevin Hicks started Beverage Grades, a laboratory that analyzes wine. What he discovered shocked him.
Some very, very high levels of arsenic.
He tested more than 1,300 bottles of wine. Almost a quarter of them had levels higher than the EPA's maximum allowable amount of arsenic in drinking water, 10 parts per billion. No one can say for sure why, but Hicks noticed a pattern.
The lower the price of the wine on a per liter basis, the higher the amount of arsenic.
They included Trader Joe's famed 2-buck Chuck White Zinfandel, which came in at 3 times the limit. A bottle of Menage a Trois Moscato was 4 times the limit, and a Franzia Blush, which had 5 times the EPA limit for drinking water. So you took your test results to some of these wine companies. What did they say?
Well, most wine companies, when I mention arsenic and wine in the same sentence, literally almost hung up the phone on me.
So what was the next step?
We've supplied our data to a law firm.
He was trying to get their attention. He was trying to blow the whistle on them.
Later today, attorney Brian Kabateck plans to file a class action lawsuit accusing more than 24 California winemakers and sellers of misrepresenting their wine as safe. You've done your own testing.
We've done testing with 2 separate labs.
So you've checked Kevin Hicks' results?
Absolutely.
Do they stand up?
Absolutely.
Those are parts per billion of arsenic.
We took those results to epidemiologist Alan Smith, Associate Director of the Arsenic Health Effects Research Program at UC Berkeley.
These are about 2 to 3 times in this particular sample, the drinking water standard, and they varied, they fluctuated, but some of them were up to 3, 4, or 5 times the drinking water standard.
Smith says 50 parts per billion of arsenic, the highest level found in one of the bottles Hicks tested, can be deadly over time. Parts per billion seems like a very small amount.
Arsenic is highly toxic. It's astonishing.
What sort of problems can it cause?
It has as many effects inside the body as cigarette smoking does.
But he bases this on studies of drinking water, which is the only beverage with an arsenic limit set by the U.S. government.
We estimate that approximately 1 in 100 people who drink water like that throughout their life will die from the arsenic, ultimately due to mostly cancers from it.
The federal government doesn't regulate wine like it does water, and a spokesperson for the wine group, one of the companies named in the lawsuit, told us it would not be accurate or responsible to use the water standard as the baseline. That's because people generally drink more water than wine. He also pointed out the highest result cited in the lawsuit is only half of Canada's standard for wine of 100 parts per billion. The FDA will only tell us it handles contaminants in food and beverages on a case-by-case basis.
The industry, we believe, is not properly regulated, but the state of California has recognized that 10 parts per billion is a dangerous amount.
He's interpreting a California law that requires businesses to warn consumers if their products contain a chemical known to the state to cause cancer. California's threshold for arsenic is 10 parts per billion, the same as the EPA's water standard. But the Wine Institute, an advocacy group for California winemakers, says the industry already provides warning signs to be posted in retail stores. And the California Attorney General's office confirmed that's all the law requires. But some think that's not enough.
I think that all beverages should aim to meet the drinking water standard of 10 parts per billion.
Or less.
Or less, absolutely.
Two other defendants named in the lawsuit responded to our request for comment. Treasury Wine Estates said its brands are fully compliant with all relevant federal and state guidelines. And Trader Joe's, which sells 2-Buck Chucks, said the concerns raised in your inquiry are serious and are being treated as such. We are investigating the matter with several of our wine-producing suppliers.
What's your ultimate goal here?
To get the winemakers to recall these wines, to get them to refund the money that people paid for these wines, and ultimately to clean up the wine industry in California.
Professor Smith says winemakers need to determine where the arsenic is coming from. But in the meantime,
Or to have on the wine, this wine contains arsenic. To most consumers, that may or may not help them, but it would sure be a big incentive for the wine producer to get down to the drinking water standard.
If they had to put it on their bottle.
Exactly.
CBS News also spot-checked and tested these 4 wines which are listed in the lawsuit. Now, we were unable to obtain the exact same vintages, but the arsenic levels were all considerably lower than the beverage grades test. Now, one of them, the wine group's Flip-Flop Pinot Grigio, actually came in within the federal standards for arsenic within drinking water. Now, the rest of them all tested above that level, including Trader Joe's 2-Buck Chuck White Zinfandel, which came in at twice that standard. Now, the plaintiff's attorneys say they expect there to be variations in the test among different vintages, and they still plan to move ahead with the case today. Gail?
All right, Carter, thank you. Very powerful piece, raises some very important questions.
Absolutely. If you're paying $2 for a bottle of wine, though, I'm not sure what you should expect necessarily.
I'd like to know Menage a Trois Moscato. What does that taste like?
Why are you looking at me?
Charlie, Jeff. I'm just surprised there's a name. There's a wine named that. All right, something to
Tasty
think
but
about.
toxic.
Something to think about. Carter, we thank you again. Very nice piece. Coming up.